What is up, everybody? Happy Cinco de Mayo. I am once again riding solo today. Dave's son is graduating. We want to congratulate him and wish them all the best. It's obviously a very exciting time when that happens with your family. So I will be handling the show again solo. We're going to do our best. Bear with me here. I'm still going to try to work with you guys on the hooker t-shirts and things like that. D has already dropped in the message at 9:53, 7 minutes before I want a shirt. I will talk with Dave. We will hook you up. I promise. You were here pretty early, and you being on while I'm the only one on, trust me, I really appreciate that. It's a little trickier than you know. We're gonna have Fred White on at 10:25. He and Dave have their Celebrate 98 series underway now, which Fred will obviously want to talk about, and we're gonna talk a little bit more NFL draft with him and just have some fun reminiscing because there's nobody better to talk 1998 with than Fred White. As far as the show today, we have a little more NFL draft news, some post-NFL draft coverage, that we want to get to, some more post-spring coverage. We're going to start with that. Then we'll have Fred White on, but we're actually going to end with some intriguing news about the Pac-12. Are they in trouble? It was something I wanted to get to yesterday, but we were just loaded with news, and so we really couldn't do it. As far as the story we covered yesterday, I'm just going to touch on this real quick before we go into the show because obviously it's gotten crazier. We mentioned yesterday we did a segment on Alabama baseball for the second time, and we were wondering if they had a gambling issue and what was going on because New Jersey, a second state following Ohio, had halted gambling on Alabama baseball games due to suspicious activity. Well, right after the show ended, we found out that Alabama had fired head baseball coach Brad Bohannon. It sounds very, very, very shady, I have to be honest. But Ben Upton, I'm seeing on Twitter now, I'm just going to bring him up, host of 11.7 podcast. He says he will be confirming with a second source before he breaks any news about Alabama baseball gambling situation that resulted in Bohannon's firing. But the detailed information he got from a very trusted source was shocking and that this is a very serious situation. Guys, this is one of the biggest deals in sports. Gambling on the sport is the worst thing you can do. There is absolutely no greater crime within the confines of sports than gambling on the sport. I've always stood by that. I will always stand by that. It is a major, major concern. You have to believe the sport is being played on the up and up. I know it's college baseball, but college baseball is on the rise. This threatens the very credibility of the sport. And I want to go through a little bit of history with this because Dave and I talked earlier about Calvin Ridley and Jamison Williams have both been called in gambling scandals with the NFL. Both played at Alabama. Guys, to go through history, look it up. 1919, the Black Sox scandal. We all know about that scandal. We all read about it. Shoeless Joe Jackson, the White Sox threw the World Series. The new commissioner at the time, Kennesaw Mountain Landis, who had some major issues, by the way, very active in keeping black players from joining Major League Baseball, not here to celebrate Kennesaw Mountain Landis. But he got this move right. Threw the players out. Just threw all of them out completely and excluded them from the Hall of Fame. Rightly so. He came down very hard and he said, this will not be tolerated. This is the worst crime you can commit. And saved baseball, basically. Saved baseball. The sport would have collapsed before it ever got off the ground. And then the Roaring 20s happened and Babe Ruth came along and put on a show for the 20s, and that really took baseball to the next level. Doesn't happen if those players aren't thrown out, though. And college baseball right now could be a fast-growing sport and maybe on the cusp of exploding in popularity with the collapse of minor league baseball. And that cusp is right there where baseball was maybe in 1919. Can I just say, so this could absolutely derail the sport. I have to tell you guys, this is a very, very serious situation. No more on that now. We'll talk about that later as more comes out because it's still going to be difficult to see. But I do have to say that this is serious. This is very serious. All right, so moving on, going into some Tennessee football coverage, some lighter news. Cedric Tillman has been named a sleeper pick of the NFL draft. Yes, Cedric Tillman has been named a sleeper pick of this year's NFL draft. For those who don't remember, Cedric Tillman went to the third round to Cleveland, to the Browns. Please hit that like and subscribe button and share. We greatly appreciate it as we continue to build this audience and build our following as I dive into the Cedric Tillman story. So, SEC defensive coordinator said that Cedric Tillman, quote, has got better hands when comparing him to Jalen Hyatt. He also said Hyatt, when he was wide open, they could use his speed. They did a great job of creating open receivers, but when he had to make contested catches, he struggled. Tillman will do a good job. Those big physical guys do well. He's saying what I've been saying about Tillman for a while, which is Josh Heupel's offense, for those who don't know, it schemes people like Jalen Hyatt wide open. Open to a level they will never be in the NFL. So the question is, how can you handle passes in coverage? Cedric Tillman has a pretty good history at Tennessee of winning a lot of 50-50 balls and winning one-on-one coverages with people. And I mean, that touchdown he had against Pittsburgh, a very clutch touchdown in overtime to secure the win for Tennessee, that was one-on-one coverage. He was well covered and he made the play. Cedric Tillman can make those plays. We haven't seen Jalen Hyatt do anything but be schemed open with his speed by Josh Heupel. So I fully agree with this SEC defensive coordinator, whoever he may be. A Power 5 coordinator added his route tree's bigger. He's just gotten more to offer. So, yes, it seems like a lot of this love for Cedric Tillman was more about taking a shot at Jalen Hyatt. I understand that, but I have to say at the same time, there's a lot of truth to that. I've said from the start, if anybody is overrated in this draft, it was Jalen Hyatt, and Cedric Tillman has a much better chance of succeeding. Now, the one thing that is holding Cedric Tillman back is the most incompetent person in the history of the world is running the Cleveland Browns franchise. That would be Jimmy Haslam. Ask any Tennessee football fan about it. My condolences to the Milwaukee Bucks for being run by Jimmy Haslam. This man is just a failure at everything, and he can't do anything right. And as long as he's running the Browns, he won't do anything right. However, as just a pure receiver, Cedric Tillman has legitimate talent. There's just no way around it. Cedric Tillman is a great route runner. One of the biggest steals you will ever see on the recruiting trail, by the way. There was a 2-star coming out of Vegas. And this kind of gets to a point that we got to talk about with some of the production from Tennessee the past 2 years. You got to give a lot of credit to Jeremy Pruitt. I mean, he found and scouted guys, and Cedric Tillman was one of those guys. So major props to Cedric Tillman on that. Or to Jeremy Pruitt on that, excuse me. Cedric Tillman was a steal. He took the job from Mel Keaton. You have to give credit for something like that. So I'm willing to do that. And at the same time, I think Cedric Tillman deserves credit for how he has performed on his own, because Cedric Tillman, again, before Jalen Hyatt, that was Hooker's go-to guy. And he could rely on Tillman to do a lot more. Whereas, again, Heupel had to scheme Hyatt open. And even and don't forget this, guys. Let's look at something like last year's Alabama game, the final drive, where Hooker has to get to field goal range within 15 seconds. If you remember, he threw it to Brew McCoy and Ramel Keaton, not Jalen Hyatt. Why was that? Because Alabama knew what Tennessee was going to try to do, and you need receivers who can make those plays when the defenses know what you're trying to do. Jalen Hyatt is not that. Jalen Hyatt is, again, a guy you scheme open in different ways and who's got the speed to do it. What Brew McCoy and Ramel Keaton did on those catches is what Cedric Tillman consistently did. So Cedric Tillman is a much better receiver prospect. I've been saying that for years. I'm going to continue to say that because it's just hard to disagree with that fact. So I think long-term you will see Cedric Tillman have more success in the NFL than Jalen Hyatt. But that is dependent somewhat, and I will say somewhat, on the system. Cedric Tillman getting this type of love follows Hendon Hooker being Matt Miller's favorite pick in the NFL draft. Remember Hendon Hooker went to the Detroit Lions. I will say Hooker being Matt Miller's favorite pick, Cedric Tillman being a sleeper candidate in the NFL draft based on what different coaches say. By the way, this was Adam Rittenberg of ESPN who named Tillman a sleeper pick. Seems like the guys from Tennessee getting love in the draft are the ones that are going to the most notoriously incompetent franchises of the past 30 years. Cleveland, Detroit. Dave Hooker has written extensively and spoken extensively on how he thinks Hooker should refuse to play in Detroit. I disagree. I think Detroit's a totally different situation and franchise than it was 10 years ago, but I understand where he's coming from. And yeah, you kind of feel bad for guys like Tillman and Hooker that could have this level of potential. that go to these franchises. But the nature of the NFL is the better you are, typically the worse teams you end up with because you're asked to save teams and franchises. So we'll see how that goes. But I will just say that I think that anybody who watched Hooker to Tillman in 2021 and then Hooker to Hyatt in 2022 would realize that Hendon Hooker, the throws were him, yes, but when the completions to Tillman were a lot more about the plays they made on the field as opposed to the plays Josh Heupel called. And that translates well to the NFL. He did it against Alabama in 2021. Again, he did it against Pittsburgh in 2022. There's just a lot to like about it. According to Rittenberg, by the way, speaking of Hooker, an SEC offensive coordinator thought Will Levis going ahead of Tennessee's Hendon Hooker was, quote, shocking. Hooker fell to the third round. The Titans traded up to get Levis in the second round. I absolutely agree. It was shocking to me, but it's something that you probably could see coming because Mel Kiper was just screaming Will Levis and basically spoke him into a high second rounder. It was crazy. He almost was a first rounder. It would have been crazy if he would drafted them. You know how I feel. I am a Titans fan. I am beyond angry that they drafted Will Levis. I just don't know what people see in him. Mr. Jones jumped in. I want a shirt. LOL. Okay, Mr. Jones. I will make sure that Dave gets you one. I'm going to email him after that it was you and D. Y'all both get shirts. I can tell you that. Congratulations for being the second one to comment. Again, hit that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it. And thank you guys. Everybody on the chat board, give me your thoughts on Tillman. I need all the help I can get today without Dave Hooker. Mr. Jones says Rand Carthen is a Gator. I mean, look, Mr. Jones, the Titans, the year they went to the Super Bowl, though, was with the help of a Gator and Javon Curse. So I wouldn't find him being somebody who would want to undercut the Titans with the move. I would say that maybe he has it out for Hendon Hooker, if the idea of him being a Gator has something to do with that. I would just say that they had no blueprint on who they wanted to draft it and how they wanted to draft in this draft. Their method made no sense. You can't expect a Gator to make good decisions for Tennessee team. Okay, I'm going to push back. Mr. Jones, one of the greatest football coaches in Tennessee history, is Doug Dickey, a Florida graduate. He won 2 SEC titles in 3 years, a retroactive national title in 1967, revitalized the program after it fell apart because they stayed committed to the single wing for way too long. So you can expect the Gator to make good decisions for Tennessee. We got to be fair on that now. And then Doug Dickey did make the move to hire Philip Fulmer and fire Johnny Majors. Whether or not you agree with that, you do with that information what you want. But Tennessee did win a national title when they hired Fulmer. As far as basketball, yeah, men's basketball. Now that is where a Gator and Doug Dickey made every bad decision possible, from Wade Houston to Jerry Green to Don DeVoe. Yeah, but Doug Dickey was an athletic director too, Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones says that's a coach, not a GM. Doug Dickey was Tennessee's athletic director. That's what I'm saying. He did make the move from Majors to Fulmer. Now, again, take with that what you will. Fulmer won a national title. Majors didn't, but there are a lot of people that think that was the wrong move. That's, again, a debate that we can rehash another time, but it's an intriguing one. Personnel and play calls are two different things. I agree. I'm just saying, Mr. Jones. I'm just saying. Not all Gators. I don't think Rand Carthen has it against the Titans. I just don't think he's a good GM. I don't think they should have hired John Robinson, if I'm being honest with you. So portions of the program are brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. It's local. They care about you. They have everything you could ask for in terms of vision care, including cataract surgery and your annual vision checkups. So Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, please go check them out. Going on from the two big spring stories always in football are the NFL draft and spring practice. I mean, for college football, because there's also free agency. But moving on from that NFL draft story, we go to 247 Sports and SEC football spring takeaways. Before we get to this, I want to send out an apology. We got this wrong yesterday. Brad Crawford of 247 Sports, we cited him for the dark horse first round NFL draft picks for 2024, of which Joe Milton III was named. That was actually done by Blake Brockermeyer. So apologies to Blake. Want to give the guys who do the stories the right credit. Blake did that story, and Brad Crawford did this story I'm bringing up, which is SEC football spring takeaways, separating facts from fiction ahead of the 2023 season. By Brad Crawford of 247 Sports. He's got takeaways for every single team. Let's start with Joe Milton. With Tennessee, excuse me. Here's what Brad Crawford said about Tennessee. He says that this is Joe Milton's offense. This is not an attempt to create a quarterback controversy for the Vols this season because, frankly, there isn't one, according to him. He said Milton's the guy. He played with poise and fluidity during spring camp ahead of five-star freshman Nico Iamaleava. And this is according to Crawford, quote, based on what I've been told from those close to the program, though, the leash on Milton might not be as long as Tennessee fans and those who cover the sport believe it is. If he had to, Josh Heupel would feel comfortable right now handing over first-team duties to Iamaleava. He has learned the scheme quickly and showed it in April. Iamaleava is so talented, it's going to be difficult for Tennessee staff to keep him off the field as a first-year potential superstar. If, for any reason, Milton's not the prolific signal caller those in Knoxville expect him to be in early 2023, Iamaleava is ready. So it seems like he's saying Joe Milton's the guy, but Iamaleava is just right there behind him. This follows Barrett Sallee of CBS doing his overreactions earlier in the week. And by the way, he called them his own overreactions, to be fair, where he said Iamaleava would be the starter by game 1. This is intriguing. From what I watched with Iamaleava, it didn't seem like he had fully picked up the playbook yet, and he needed a little bit of time. But this is not what but based on what Brad Crawford is saying, and based on Barrett Sallee's overreaction, these contradict what Dennis Dodd said about Iamaleava when he first arrived on campus. We're all of a sudden having a question, is it possible Iamaleava beats out Joe Milton? Now, Crawford says the job is Joe Milton's. And from everything we all watched, Joe Milton didn't lose the job in the spring, and Iamaleava had some developing to do. But these reports suggest a lot more favorable facts about Iamaleava than even I knew. Because I thought he still had some issues he had to work on based on what I saw in the spring game. Yes, he made some amazing throws, but he was 8 of 16. Well, according to this, he picked up the playbook, and he understands the scheme. Now, this scheme is very easy to pick up. I mean, all you got to do is read a safety. Like any of us here in this little on the show today, or watching or talking in this forum, any of us could pick up this offense in 2 weeks. Wouldn't be that hard. So it's going to be intriguing how that goes. Mr. Jones says Joe Milton is the starter, has been in the system for 3 years, and has progressed each year, showing most recently in the Orange Bowl. Mr. Jones, I agree with you, and I think Joe Milton is going to stay the starter. I would say, though, 2 pushbacks on that. Got to question a little bit of what he did in the Orange Bowl, because you have to wonder how committed Clemson was in that game. More importantly than that, you also have to wonder, and this is a big one now, does it matter how long you're in the system if you can throw? Because this isn't a hard system to pick up. Now, Joe Milton may have developed more, and that may be the thing you're talking about. He has developed and has been working with the quarterback coaches and Josh Heupel for 3 years to work on his accuracy. But if Nico already has that, I'm just saying, it's a little bit intriguing. I think, still, gun to my head, Joe Milton's the starter and finishes the year. I think Dave Hooker believes that too. Dave Hooker was told his own things, that Joe Milton is in pretty good shape. What all the stuff we're seeing is that Joe Milton just has not lost a job, and he's done nothing to lose the job, and that's where I am right now. Let's go through some of these other SEC spring takeaways. So Brad Crawford says that Ole Miss remains unsettled at quarterback. Yes, that is true. That is a lot to try to figure out. Oklahoma State's Spencer Sanders and LSU's Walker Howard were all given reps this spring, but it seems like Jackson Dart is the leader, but he was very inconsistent. So Ole Miss could have a fall off this year. Offensive line is the major worry for Kentucky this year. I mean, that was a major worry for Kentucky last year. So there's nothing new with that. South Carolina will continue to ascend under Shane Beamer. Now, this is an intriguing one. This is, by the way, Travis says morning to you, Travis, too. Now, will South Carolina emerge under Shane Beamer? That's a good question. That's very, very, very possible. And if they do, that's a big problem for Tennessee. Tennessee needs to make sure they beat the brakes off South Carolina this year. That is a recruiting That is a war over recruiting turf, guys. It is no coincidence that the year Steve Spurrier went to South Carolina in 2005, Tennessee went 5-6, and the downward slide started. It is no coincidence that the worst period of Tennessee football history was when Steve Spurrier was at South Carolina and Clemson was ascending under Dabo Swinney. Tennessee's entire national title team, Tennessee's national title team, the entire defensive line was from South Carolina. Moving on, Jimbo Fisher's stubbornness finally ends. Those close to the program reporting that this will be Bobby Petrino's offense, the new offensive coordinator. Well, that'll be interesting. If it does, maybe he saves his job, but we don't know yet. Chips are stacked against Billy Napier in Florida. Well, we all knew that. That is true with the NIL failures and the mishaps in the transfer portal. So Florida is hurting a little bit personnel-wise. Assumption Auburn's QB situation is its biggest hurdle. That could be possible with Hugh Freeze. I mean, again, Hugh Freeze is somewhat of a quarterback whisperer, despite everything else he is problematic. But according to Crawford, the bigger worry offensively is piecing together a playmaking rotation at wideout. That could be an issue too. Hugh Freeze usually loves those big wideouts. LSU beginning to feel overhyped. He used the word rat poison maybe for LSU. But I think, and yes, LSU actually has a tough schedule. Maybe they are overhyped. Maybe they aren't, but I'm very, very high on LSU. Doubt surrounding Georgia's three-peat chances. I'm not even going down. I'm pretty sure that Georgia won't three-peat. Notion that Nick Saban has lost a step. This is based on the quarterback desperation and adding a transfer in Tyler Buckner. I don't think Saban has lost a step. I think he's fine. I just think Alabama's going to rebuild this year because Ty Simpson is massively overrated. So those are some of the major overreactions from SEC Spring Ball. So portions of the program are brought to you by Craft Treats. Go to crafttreats.com and use the promo code OFFTHEHOOK. You can get 20% off for chill pills for your pet, help with anxiety, digestive issues, arthritis. They'll help with all of those. We'll be back in 2 minutes to talk to Fred White. Yes, a Football Friday with Fred with no Dave Hooker. 2 minutes. Stick with us.
And Craving Wings South North Shore location, where we've heard people say that you can get the best wings in East Tennessee. Pero ¿quién es este? El número 87, Jacob Warren.
I'll just do 6 of my sauce 87, please.
Imposible, señorita. Dale 6 más. Look at these wings. Perfectas, deliciosas, fantásticas.
Man, I don't know what you're saying, but it sounds awesome. How do you say fresh, never frozen in Spanish?
Frescas, nunca congeladas. Make your way to Craving Wings and get you 6 más.
But what was funny about Cadis, we were a full continuum of care at that time. We had detox, we had inpatient, we had outpatient. So we were doing a lot of the things that we do now. But now we just do them so much better. It's really a simple program, but we're complicated people. I am what I am, and now I got to do something about it.
You can take your life back. Call Cadis today.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn at cctis.com.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassey Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassey, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassey's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassey Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
Our family has been creating jewelry since 1986, each piece unique with a story all its own. I'm Rick Terry with Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. I'm a jeweler, and I want to be your jeweler. We're grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler. My family and staff look forward to serving you. So please come see us. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut and downtown on Gay Street, right next to the Tennessee Theater.
It's a Football Friday with Fred, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. City Heat and Air, they've been serving the Knoxville market for over 60 years. And with May having arrived, we're probably out of any more cold days until next fall. So you want to make sure your AC is working properly. City Heating and Air Conditioning. Fred White is here. How's it going, Fred?
How's it going, man?
Pretty good. Thanks for doing this. This is it's a little bit tricky doing it hosting solo. So
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I know you're doing a pretty good job of it.
thank you. Fred, before we get going, you and Dave have started y'all Celebrate 98 series. So just talk a little bit about that and what y'all have been working on with that so far.
Yeah, well, we have a thing called Celebrate 98. We're gonna interview some guys, kind of tell our own stories. It's an opportunity to kind of get to know those guys on a different level. And it's 25 years removed, man. A lot of things have happened during that time period, and some of our fans want to know where our guys are. I mean, even if they don't, we're gonna tell our story the way we want to tell it. So, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Doing a little reminiscing myself, so I gotta you're gonna laugh on this. So I was significantly humbled last week because I'm a Grizzly fan, and they did all that chirping and got bounced out in the first round. And it reminded me specifically of a 99 game that y'all played. And it was the 99 game against Georgia. If I remember correctly, they did a lot of chirping the week up to their visit to Neyland Stadium. And didn't they stomp on the tee that Saturday before y'all blew them out?
Yeah, they did. They did. They almost got beat up right there in the middle of the field too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When we found, like, we were on our way back into the locker room for pregame, and Sean Ellis is livid. Like, man, they stepping on our tee, and he turns around and he's running back out to the, and everybody's coming behind him. They're trying to stop us from coming out. Like, man, we're not taking this. And so when we went in the locker room, they'd already talked trash all week. We already knew what we were going to do to them. I mean, they just turned up that level of ass whipping up to a whole nother lot. It was already on like 9.5, maybe 8. May have been about an 8 before the game started. But when they stopped on the tee, they turned it up to about 15. And we wanted to make sure they knew. Don't ever come in our stadium and do no shit like that. Excuse my language, but I'm just saying.
Oh Lord. Hey, it's I was young at the time, but I remember that specifically because it seemed like y'all were more than willing to. I know Fulmer wasn't the biggest run up the score guy, but it seemed like y'all were a little more than willing to put on a few extra points on Georgia.
Absolutely, we wanted everybody to score. I mean, you don't come in our house and act like that on our football field. Hey, man, you crazy. You lost your mind.
Was Georgia were they what I would say the Grizzlies or the Bengals of that time in the SEC? Were they the ones that did the most chirping without any wins, without any championships to back it up?
They didn't talk much to us because they couldn't beat us. So I mean, Florida was the only team that really talked the trash like that. I mean, Kentucky, everybody kind of talked a little bit of trash, but they knew when we rolled up in the stadium. They knew when they said Tennessee on your schedule, you knew what was coming. You knew defensively, we were going to come after you. I mean, we weren't changing what we were doing for anybody. Everybody who played us knew you're going to play man-to-man coverage, and we're going to blitz zero man, and it's my man against your man, you got to beat us. So knowing that coming into your game, you already know. You can talk trash all you want to. Everybody talks trash until you get punched in the mouth. That's it. You got a game plan, too, until you get punched in the mouth, and we were coming. I like the fact that Chief, one of my teammates sent me, Billy Ratliff sent me we wear these sleeves, and they got the plays on there, right? Mm-hmm. He sent me one from 1999, and I'm looking at the play call list, and I'm thinking, man, we blitzed the crap out of them. Like, literally, every last call except for me, it was like 12, maybe 15 calls on that sheet. Only like 2 of them were like zone. Everything else was man-to-man, and it was blitz. We were getting after somebody. And it just made me realize, like, man, we blitzed the crap out of everybody. We didn't care who you were.
Yeah. It's funny. When Bruce Pearl got hired at Tennessee like 15 years ago, and he introduced that 2-2-1 press that he would do constantly. He basically was like, we're basically just going to do what John Chavis does in football. We're going to do that in basketball now.
Yeah. We're going to put pressure on you all game and see what happens.
Yeah. So I love reminiscing. So I want to stick on 98 because I want to get to a couple of news stories this week, but I want to reminisce a little more looking back during that time. You guys were in the secondary, they had to put a lot of faith in y'all, right? Because they put y'all on islands. They were like, look, we're going to blitz, and we just need y'all to be able to hold your own no matter what.
Absolutely. Well, for one of the things that we did against every team, they knew we were going to be man-to-man. They knew we were going to blitz and break. Hey, going into that season, though, we were considered the weak link into 98 season, and 99 was, I guess, a little bit different. So we had leadership because we had 3 guys coming back. But in 98, all the reports, I wish somebody could go back, and there's a Knoxville News Sentinel celebration for the 1998 team as well coming up. And I just wanted to pull out some of the newspapers they had before the season started. Not the ones that we won it and all that type of stuff. I want to see the ones that showed what they said about us, like the evaluations that they gave us. And we were the weak link on defense. Our defensive line and linebackers were the strength, and the weakness was the defensive backs. I still remember. I still have one of those newspapers somewhere in there as a clipping, but that was something major for that 98 season that we remembered. I remember Dion grabbing the newspaper and walking in the locker room, in the meeting room, was like, y'all see this? It's like, okay, we're going to show them. Okay.
Yeah, y'all very quickly became a strength. And then 98 and 99, y'all were strength both years.
Yeah.
Looking back on 98, Dave and I were talking recently because we did a thing on like the most clutch of all in history. And I tried to go beyond the quarterbacks with that because it's so easy to judge or not judge with them. But who would you say was the most clutch player on y'all's team that year? I mean, like when outside of T. Martin, when things were really working against you guys, you just knew this person was going to make a play to kind of change the tone of the game.
I'm going to go real, not even offense or defense. The most clutch player on our squad, man, I'm going to go with Jeff Hall. I'm sorry.
Jeff Hall. I mean, those two field goals.
He made a field goal in Syracuse with the time running out to win the game. He made a field goal to win the game against Florida. Made a field goal in the national championship game. Missed one, but made one when it counted, when we needed it the most. So I'm going to go with our kicker. The kickers don't get a lot of love. I got a lot of love for my teammate, Jeff Hall. So I'm going to go with Jeff Hall being the most clutch because when we needed him, he did his job. And it was clutch. We needed it. It was in the clutch. Absolutely.
It's funny you bring up that because it's one of the most unique things to me. I think y'all are still the only team I know that elected your kicker one of your captains that year.
Yeah.
And because y'all made
it
Jeff
says
Hall
a lot about him. Says a lot about him. He's a good person, good player. Jeff came to work when he came to work, It's a great character. Was always on time. One of the top people on the team when it comes to character and integrity and those type of things. Still is. You don't make a kicker one of your captains unless he's a stellar person, and he was. He was a very great teammate to have and still is to this day. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Jeff Hall being our most clutch.
Okay. Mr. Jones brings up the guy I was going to bring up, which was Peerless Price, because I just always felt Peerless. It seemed like every Peerless touchdown was against a ranked team to change the lead in a game that year.
Mm-hmm. Peerless was clutch too. He was. I'm gonna go with Jeff simply because Peerless needed T to get the ball to him, and he needed to get open. Right.
Right.
All Jeff had to do was put the ball through the uprights. And when he put the ball through the uprights, that was big for us. We never saw a time – I never thought any time where when he was going on the field to kick that we were going to miss the kick. Never thought that. I thought it was going to be automatic almost every time.
Yeah, and that Florida
I can't even remember ones I can't remember kicks that he actually missed. I don't know how many he actually missed. I couldn't recall. But I know when he went on the football field, we knew that he was going to get us 3 points. That's what we felt.
Yeah, I've actually made the argument in the past because everybody talks about the Sterner fumble. I'm like, y'all know that Tennessee still could have gotten the ball back without the fumble, and they had Jeff Hall and were only down by 2. So y'all still might have won that game.
It's possible. All we had to do was get down the field, get in field goal range. If we're in field goal range, I'm putting my money on Jeff Hall.
Yeah, particularly if the game's on the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how important – I want to talk a little bit because South Carolina is considered a dangerous team this year with Shane Beamer, and we know what they did to Tennessee last year with the whole incident that we don't have to rehash, but the Jeremy Banks NIL. How important is it for Tennessee this year to stomp on South Carolina? Because I think for recruiting purposes, because when you guys were there, the whole defensive line was from South Carolina. And for recruiting purposes in general, how important is it for Tennessee to stamp out any South Carolina rise in football?
Oh, yeah, because they have a hotbed of talent in the state. And we do have guys that have come out of there that have come to Tennessee and played very well. Jonathan Hepney is one of those guys after us, from Rock Hill, South Carolina. They have a good program. Gaffney has a good program where Jeff Coleman came from, and also Dominique Stevenson. Sean Ellis was from there. Don Walker from there. Albert Hainsworth's from there. There's a lot of good talent there. So it'd be great for us to, negate what they've done in last season and just kind of show it was a fluke. But the person or the people who are going to be clutch in that game is the same thing that happened for them. The crowd, the fan base. I see you over there, Mr. Jones. You're right. The fans have been clutch. They need to be very clutch in this game. When I say clutch, when it comes talking about fans and a football game at home, if they don't call at least 2 timeouts, one in each half, because of the crowd, then you haven't done your job. That's just my thought process. In order to win games at home, your crowd has to be such a presence that when a team is trying to change the play at the line of scrimmage, they shouldn't be able to hear it. Late in the clock has a call a timeout. They just can't hear it. They can't communicate. When you do things like that, as a home crowd, it changes the game too, because now they have one less timeout. If you make them take 2 in one half, so imagine if it's coming down to the last play of the second half and they don't have enough time left, or the last play of the fourth quarter and they don't have enough time left. I mean, we know we're going to put points on the board. Helping that defense out makes a difference, and that crowd helps the defense a lot, because it causes confusion for the offense because they can't communicate as efficiently as they would like to. But it also gives us extra edge and just extra go. It does. When you hear that crowd like that, man, you gotta play on another level because it gives you that extra it factor.
Right. It's so transition to the NFL draft a little bit, because when we had you on last week, we had Darnell Wright had just gotten drafted, and then 4 other Tennessee players got drafted after that. Just the major one first, Hendon Hooker to Detroit. I don't know if you saw Dave's column. He says Hendon Hooker should just leave and then reclassify for the 2024 draft rather than play for Detroit. What do you think of Hooker's situation?
Dave just talking. He take that money too. I don't know what he's talking about. Dave just talking. If he's in that situation, he's going to accept that draft pick as well. Yes, you got drafted. Congratulations. I don't care what city it's in. You're in the NFL. Congratulations.
What do you think of Hooker's prospects as playing in Detroit? Jared Goff has 2 years left on his deal. They might be. It seems like I assume they're invested in him long term. Don't you think?
Jared Goff?
Hooker.
Oh, okay. Y'all did have a better year last year, but I still don't think that they think he's the guy long term. I think Hendon Hooker has the opportunity to come in as a 3rd-round pick and does not have to start immediately, which is one of the best things for him. You don't have to start right away. So you can learn the game, understand that the speed is different, understand your locker room too. Not having to be the guy in this situation for him. We talked about getting drafted in the 1st round to the wrong team or getting drafted in the 3rd or 4th round to the right team. I can say that the offense they're trying to run is very similar to what we kind of ran at Tennessee. They want to be fast-paced. They don't have a big back. They have backs who can go out and get it. Also drafted Jameer Gibbs, who's a do-it-all guy. We saw what he could do at Alabama when he played against us. He scored a touchdown, can get outside and catch the ball in the backfield, and he has breakaway speed. They got good receivers on the outside. They did just trade Swift, but they had another running back that was there. I can't remember his name. Right on the top of my head, I can't remember his name. But I think that offense suits him very well. And given time, we shall see. He may end up as a starting quarterback at some point. And it's not a bad position in the NFL to be a backup quarterback for the next 10 years either, by the way. That's one of the best jobs in the world. Not knowing that you don't have to go in unless someone gets into it, and you still get paid to do it. Hey, man, I'll take that job all day.
That's a good point. I think I remember Jim Sorgi, Peyton Manning's backup with the Colts, said that one time. He's like, I got the best job in the world. I'm getting paid to just sit and watch Peyton Manning take every step.
Yeah, absolutely.
A few other players. So Cedric Tillman to Cleveland, Jalen Hyatt to New York, Byron Young to the Rams. Who of those do you think got the best situation?
I think all of them got good situations there, but they got drafted. They all got drafted in the third round. I don't see any of them being a bad situation. It's what you do with your opportunity once you get there. I think Tillman going to Cleveland is a really good place for him. Having a quarterback that's there, that guy's amazing. I think Watson can pull it together. He needed another receiver. They have a good tight end. They have another receiver on the outside over there. And Tillman is a guy who can run routes and can catch the ball. It's very tough. But I also see a great running game that they have over there as well. So I think they can help them out in many different ways just by having another receiver that can do what Tillman can do. Jalen, I think, is going to do a good job in New York. Daniel Jones needs another receiver. He needs somebody who can take the top off of it. And it also helps out with them not being able to stack the box with Saquon Barkley. So I think all these guys are in positions and opportunities that give them an opportunity to do something else, to get to the next, to be some of the best guys at their position in the next level. And the one I'm the most excited and happy for, though, is Young. Byron Young, I'm happy that guy got drafted. And he is in a good situation because you got Donald as your D tackle. He's getting the double team. What they need you to do is maybe get to the quarterback and get pressure from the outside. And I think he has the speed to do so. And of course, if he learns the technique and understands how to use his hands better, because you have to do that in the next level, he may be the guy that we're talking about more than any of them, just because of position and who he's playing with.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of. I agree. I was high on Byron Young too as the best situation, and it reminds me of, you'll love this. It was right after you had graduated, but when John Henderson and Albert Haynesworth started to occupy the middle at defensive tackle for Tennessee, and basically them occupying the middle just freed up Will Overstreet to wreak so much havoc on the outside.
Yeah, if you got one-on-one on the outside, that's what you get drafted for. Hey. You got a stud on the inside over here. Your job should be easy. All you got to do is beat one guy to get to the quarterback. Who's better, you or him? That's what it comes down to when you got Aaron Donald as your defensive tackle. If you have Aaron Donald as a defensive tackle and you're the defensive end playing the same side as him, I don't know how you don't have double-digit sacks every year, because you're going to get one-on-one coverage.
Right. No, that's true. And you're right. Byron Young, he's raw, but he could probably make an impact early because of that situation.
Yeah. That's all pure talent.
Yeah. I wanted to get to a couple undrafted signings. Dave is high on Princeton Fant with the Cowboys. I'm highest. I want to know what your thoughts are on Jerome Carvin to the Chiefs. I just think that's a really good situation for him.
I think it's a good situation for him too. That would be three Tennessee guys, former Tennessee guys, on the same team, because they did draft Wanya Morris.
Oh, that's right. They did.
Yeah, they drafted Wanya Morris. So I think Carvin has a good shot. Even if he doesn't finish with the Chiefs, I think he has a good opportunity because of what Trey has done, because of what some of the other offensive linemen have done and been around for a long time. I think it helps them maybe stay a little longer. I think Jerome Carvin will make a team. hopefully it's with Kansas City. And if it's not, I think he'll still be in the NFL.
Yeah, how inexcusable is it that 2020 team went 3-7 when you had Jerome Carvin, Wanye Morris, Trey Smith, Cooper Mays, Cade Mays, and Darnell Wright as your offensive line?
All offensive linemen that are in the NFL now.
Yep, all of them. All of them.
I mean, don't stop there. You got Gray. You got Chandler. You got all these guys that were part of that football team that now are, playing on Sundays. We missed out on a lot. I think that was that's one of the worst coaching decisions we've ever made in hiring that guy.
Fred, before I let you go, and I'm going to ask you to let us know how we can how people can get in touch with you in a second. But last question, most important question: you live just outside of Atlanta, right?
Yep.
Are you psyched for the Real Housewives of Atlanta season premiere on Sunday?
I haven't watched the show since it came out, so I'm not excited at all. I mean, I can care less. My thought process is how can you be a housewife if you don't even have a husband? Yeah. So I'm just being honest. I'm just saying.
That is half the people on those shows now. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how are you a housewife if you don't even have a husband?
Well, one of them was married to an assistant coach for Utah's football program, the running backs coach at Utah, and she's going to prison now for financial fraud.
Yeah, and like I said, she was married to him.
Yes.
That don't make you a housewife. You're not a housewife.
That is true. And then they always brag about their businesses. I'm like, that's not the point of a housewife. You're not like the whole point is to not have a business.
Exactly. I mean, it's. I don't know what you should call the show, but it should be Housewives of Atlanta. I guarantee you that.
Oh Lord, Fred, how can people get in touch with you?
If I'm thinking logically.
Yeah, they were. Well, okay. I think the show started when the whole concept started. I think they were housewives, and now I think it's
some of them were. Some of them weren't then either. It was, it was basketball wives or something like that, and then housewives. Most of them people weren't even.
Yeah. That's
they weren't even married. Like, hey man, that's his ex-wife. She's not a housewife.
Yeah.
How about we make a show called The Ex-Wife?
Ex-Wife. That would be an epic.
It might be better suited for the show.
Ex-Wives of Atlanta. Now that would be an epic one. Fred, how can people get in touch with you?
Man, they can give me a call at our telephone number is 770-381-0367. Again, that is 770-381-0367. They can also follow us online on also all the social media outlets. We're Fred White Allstate on Instagram as well as Facebook. And please go follow me on those. I'm trying to get my numbers up. Okay, thank you. But you can look us up online at Fred White Allstate, and we can. I'm looking at this text box over there, and I'm not going to say those things that you're saying. I see what you say over there. I got you. I got you. I heard you. Heard you loud and clear.
For Dave, it should be house,
but I'm not going there. but we can. But you can look us up also online at just Fred White Allstate. You can actually start your quote right there online. You can text us from online as well. Any information that you want us to have or to discuss. Look forward to trying to help as many people as we possibly can. And if we can't get you a good quote, we can at least educate you on what you can and cannot do, or some of the things that you possibly should do. And the other thing is we offer life insurance and life insurance information and education as well. I think anyone and everyone who's above a certain age should find a way to get some life insurance. And we call it also mortgage protection as well as family protection, because when you're gone, you still want to be able to take care of those people. Just give us a call, 770-381-0367.
Fred, thanks a lot for doing the show with me today. I really appreciate it. Loving the text on the side, too. We definitely needed Dave Hooker just for his last name for this one.
Yes, we did. He goes just right with the housewife.
Yes. Oh, Fred, have a good weekend.
Oh, housewife Dave over there.
You going anywhere for Cinco de Mayo tonight?
You know what? I don't know yet. Call me tomorrow morning, and then you'll figure out whether or not I did.
We'll find out where you went. Oh, Fred, have a good one, buddy.
All right, man. You have a good one.
All right. See you later.
All right. Go Vols, baby.
All right. That was Fred White. Fred White's appearance brought to you by Zool Beer in part, xulbeer.com. It is fantastic, worldwide award-winning craft beer. Make sure to check it out. They have a great place in downtown Knoxville where you can get great parking and have panoramic views. Zoolbeer.com. Man, okay. So I want to get to some of your jokes on the message boards, guys, in a minute. We got to take a quick 2-minute break. We'll be back. When we come back, I'll go to the message boards, and we will talk about some issues related to the Pac-12. Be back very soon. 2 minutes.
I know you like the heat. You gotta try my signature sauce 87.
Dude, you know I love you and I love to try your wing sauce, but when it comes to wings, I need them really hot. I hit 105 on the radar gun. I need to be pretty spicy.
Yeah, I know that, man. Look, if sauce 87 isn't enough for you, I guess you can try the Holy Moses or the Grim Reaper.
Now we're talking.
Take it from these Farragut admirals. When you're craving wings, it's got to be Craven Wings. Visit them online at cravenwings.com.
With all that sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Before Cadis, I was really heavy into the drug culture. I was selling drugs. I was just constantly in pain. I was missing like a good support system in my life. Cadis has given me everything that I need in order to successfully have a wonderful recovery, in order to have a life that I didn't even know was possible. And it's not just about me anymore, and I love that. I absolutely love it.
You can take your life back. Call Cadis today.
Our family has been creating one-of-a-kind pieces of jewelry in West Knoxville since 1986. Each piece is a combination of unique processes that bring your idea to life. Every day in our shop, a truly special item with a story all its own is being manufactured in our facility, bringing the history and family sentiment into a whole new generation of life. We are grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler, a title that we value and respect. Because to me, being a jeweler and owning a jewelry store are not the same thing. I'm Rick Terry. I'm a jeweler, and we want to be your jeweler. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street right next to the Tennessee Theater.
Again, no sound effects today. I don't have Dave's magic, but Off the Hook brought to you by Andy Mason of AndyMasonRealEstate.com. You can save thousands or tens of thousands of dollars because he's got the best prices when it comes to real estate in the Knoxville market. He's got over 40 years of experience. He is awesome. AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Before we get to the next segment, just a few of you guys on the chat out. I can't believe I'm doing this. Dave's going to kill me. We're going to start with, on a lighter note, Johnny Chat says Jonathan Mingo is the best wide receiver in the draft. Was taken in the second round, 30th pick to the Panthers. Bryce Young to Jonathan Mingo, excuse me. Kind of an interesting one. He is only 6'2", but roughly 220, but I don't know if the best wide receiver in the draft, but possibly. A lot of jokes on the Housewives, guys. Travis says says it should be HOS period for short. You guys know what that turns into. Mr. Jones says you can't turn that into a housewife. Okay, I can actually say this on YouTube. House of Garden Hose. There you go. We're just talking about gardening tools, guys. And yes, we had the Dave Hooker joke because of his last name, a Hooker production company producing House Hose of Atlanta. Oh, that'd be great. I'm sorry, having a little bit of fun, having a little bit too much fun. It's Dave's fault. We're going to fully blame him. Okay, so I want to get to this Pac-12 story. Mr. Jones, this is the best joke of the night. Will Levis got more defensive backs drafted than he did wide receivers. Love that. Love that. That is the funniest joke of the night. That's a good one. I'm a fan. Johnny Chat's Josh Allen GOAT. Really? Are you trolling now? Josh Allen GOAT. Question is, Will Levis good? There's some raw talent, but decision-making is a massive question, and intangibles are a massive question. And I can tell you as a Titans fan, I am not happy that we drafted him. All right, moving on. More news to get to, and we are going to talk a little conference realignment. Let's have a little fun. Big question. It's a national story. Is the Pac-12 dead? That's the question. Is the Pac-12 dead? Is it done? So for those who don't know, according to CBS Sports a couple of days ago, the Pac-12 suffered a major blow in terms of their television rights deals. Basically, ESPN is no longer an option to take their primary media rights for Tier 1 games. They were looking to ESPN desperately to really just kind of bail them out. ESPN currently has agreements with the Big 12, the ACC, and the AAC, and the SEC. The SEC is obviously the primary one, their new deals. And they basically iced out the Pac-12 for primary games. They are not going to be contending for the top tier Pac-12 games. We don't know where the Pac-12 is going to go. Obviously, the CBS is going to be primarily promoting the Big Ten now. Same with Fox, honestly, because the Big Ten out-finessed the SEC and decided to use multiple networks. NBC is using Big Ten and Notre Dame. Pac-12 may go there, but again, they're not going to be the primary promotional conference now on any network. They weren't going to be on ESPN, but ESPN, based on the structure of them, has a little more leverage to just be able to promote multiple conferences the way they need to be promoted. Guys, the Pac-12 is in trouble. Pac-12 is in big, big trouble. USC and UCLA are going to join the Big Ten, I believe, by 2025. I can't remember if it's 2024 or 2025. According to certain reports, the Pac-12, the teams are looking to add are like San Diego State is one of them. And I get it, they're looking TV markets, but San Diego State? Seriously? How do you call them Power 5 at that point? How do you call the Pac-12 Power 5 if San Diego State joins them and then maybe UNLV? Mr. Jones, you suggest Pac-12, Big 12 merger. I've heard a lot of reports on that. I think it's even more. I think it's a little more extreme. I think the Pac-12 just gets absorbed into the Big 12. The Big 12 goes and takes certain teams from the Pac-12. But you might be right. It could be a merger. We don't know how the Big 10 is going to operate yet. That's what remains a question here. But what happens if, say, Oregon goes to the Big Ten, and which they're interested in? Washington goes to the Big Ten. One of the Northern California schools goes to the Big Ten. They're interested in all three. Guys, even if Pac-12, Big 12 merger at that point, that conference is a second-tier conference to the Big Ten and the SEC. Because if the Big Ten adds those schools, the SEC is going to add Clemson, Florida State, Miami, provided the Big Ten doesn't add Miami because they are targeting them. I do believe they're going to try to get a North Carolina school, and I believe they're going to try to get a Virginia school. And when that happens, I mean, we're really, really, really close to a two-conference football league in being the SEC and the Big Ten. Now, can the Big 12 what's left of the Pac-12 and what becomes left of the ACC after I think the SEC raids it, which maybe in 10 years, who knows? Can those three form a hodgepodge, like third conference, so you have a Power 3? Maybe. But in all honesty, I mean, I really think the Pac-12 we already knew the Pac-12 was in trouble. They're in bigger trouble now. One, I don't know why they're adding San Diego State, because if you're thinking TV market, I mean, I would assume that the California market, but by just having Cal or Stanford, you get to cover the whole California market. I thought they would go somewhere like UNLV. I think UNLV is a sleeping giant. If any school is positioned to be a Power 5 school over the next 10 years, it's UNLV. Look at all the money that's going into Vegas right now and all the money that's coming out. I mean, Oakland moved 2 pro teams to Vegas. The Las Vegas Golden Knights, the NHL team. Vegas is the hotbed for professional sports now with sports gambling going national, because here's why this is happening. Yes, sports gambling is national and it's legal in so many different states, but the regulations are different state to state. And so it's simpler to operate for a lot of these companies to operate out of Vegas or Nevada, where they're a lot more familiar with how things are. So I think UNLV is where the Pac-12 should go. I think UNLV could be the secret team to save them. They are an underrated program, guys. They are a sleeping giant in college football. Heard it here first? Cedric Tillman is from Vegas, by the way. But as far as the Pac-12 goes, in general, guys, they're in real trouble. So the question becomes, will there be a Pac-12-Big 12 merger, as Mr. Jones, as you suggest, or do you think that the Big 12 just raids the Pac-12 for certain teams? Because I think that's possible. I mean, does the Big 12 really have any interest in Washington State or Oregon State? Or will they just add an Arizona State, a Utah, and I mean, does Colorado go back into the Big 12? I mean, that would be funny. I mean, think about this. Just less than 20 years ago, Colorado left the Big 12 for the Pac-12 because that seemed like the bigger conference. And now we're talking about maybe they'd prefer to be in the Big 12. What's going to happen with all of this? It's interesting. It's exciting. I love conference realignment talk. I don't like where it's going because I actually liked Dave wants the 40 best teams and have it a semi-NFL. I like college football being more national, spread across the country, making it interesting for different teams. That's obviously no longer happening. It's going to go by the wayside. But it is what it is. At least you'll get to see all the best talent competing against each other. My long-term prediction is that the non-SEC, the SEC and the Big Ten will be the only two conferences, and there are a few teams left out there that will be plucked, and they'll be their own Division I school program. The teams that'll be plucked, Notre Dame eventually is going to be forced to join a conference. And Travis says eventually, just like Pangea, it's going to be just one. Yeah, it'll be just one. It'll be, or maybe two, like it'll be one big league that the SEC and Big Ten agree to, and they're like the AL and NL. What's going to happen is the teams that are no longer in the SEC, that are not yet in the SEC and the Big Ten, which that will be, because right now there's 32 teams and maybe it's like a 48-team conference. Let's just go through these, have a little fun. Oregon's going to the Big Ten would be one. Washington would be one. They would go to the Big Ten. Or yes, or Big Ten or SEC. Oregon, Washington, Florida State, Miami, Clemson, Virginia Tech or Virginia, and North Carolina. Those are the schools that would probably get into one of the big conferences. You might end up getting up to 8, so you might have a 40-team, one league, 20 and 20 on each one. Kind of intriguing how that will play out. I don't really see anybody else going, guys, honestly. Maybe Deion Sanders can politic and get Colorado in there. Who knows? But I'm not seeing it. I think your primary ones are Oregon, Washington, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, Virginia, or Virginia Tech. That's 7 right there. So that would get you to 39 to be in one of those two conferences. I mean, and Notre Dame. That's 8. That's 8. That gets you at 40 right there. You got 20 and 20, agree to form one league, have an AL and NL basically in a Super Bowl. That's where college football is going to be in 20, maybe 20 years. What's very clear is the Big Ten. This move is just, it's in trouble. ESPN is smart to not want to carry their games. Don't forget that what undid the Big Ten was they signed this ridiculous long-term deal way back in 2009. Larry Scott considered it a genius move to lock themselves in for a long-term contract. It was the Scottie Pippen move of contract negotiations. What I mean by that, for those who don't know, in 1991, with 2 years left on his contract, Scottie Pippen decided he wanted an extension. Then the Bulls offered him like 7 years, $18 million. And Jerry Krause at the time was like, don't sign this deal. If you sign it, you're going to regret it, because when you're a free agent, you're going to be worth a lot more, because the Dream Team is about to happen in 92 and the NBA is about to explode in popularity. Scottie wanted the sure thing, signed the deal. Sure enough, 2 years later, one of the top 10 players in the NBA was, I don't even think, in the top 50 of being paid, and he resented it. That was the Pac-12. They signed their TV rights deals and locked in for like a long, 15-year deal in 2009. And many people at the time thought it was a genius move to keep them solvent going forward. Well, what happened? College football exploded in revenue. The Big Ten network started. The SEC network started. They made great deals with streaming and different channels and networks. And the payout of the college football playoff happened. And the Pac-12 deal looked minuscule within a good 5 years. It was a disastrous move. Mr. Jones, the SEC holds college football together. Yeah, them and the Big Ten. Look, the Big Ten still, the SEC is a better conference, but the Big Ten still has a huge, holds college football together. Mr. Jones said SEC going to a 32-team league. I don't see 32. I don't think it's, again, you have to think about the revenue they're going to get versus the team they're going to add. You have to think about the money they would actually have to pay out versus the revenue that would bring in. So the revenue that would bring in has to outweigh the money they would pay out if they're going to add new teams. So that's why I'm saying Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Virginia or Virginia Tech, and one of the North Carolina schools. I would guess North Carolina specifically. If the SEC had their pick right now and decided to go to 20 teams, they'd add Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Virginia Tech, and North Carolina. I think those would be the 5 teams they add. I would consider maybe Virginia, because even though Virginia Tech, I think, is a bigger brand, Virginia is very close in revenue. And with Virginia, you can actually get the DC market at that point. So you can, a television market still can matter to a certain degree. But yes, the SEC. So I would see the SEC going to 20 teams. I don't see them going beyond that. I don't see any value that Oklahoma State brings them or any other Texas schools. I think they're totally fine with going to 20 and calling it a day. I think the Big Ten might go to 24. So we'll have to see how that happens. And if the Big Ten goes to 24, maybe the SEC goes to 24 and you have 2 24-team leagues. Who knows? But it's going to be 2 20-team leagues, 2 24-team leagues. Eventually, you're going to have an AL and an L in college football. It's just going to happen. So we're going to have to see how that all plays out. Portions of the program brought to you by Vassy Lawn and Garden. Man alive, it's worth the drive. Industrial, commercial mowers, residential, they've got it all. Go to vassy.com to learn more. Vassy Lawn and Garden in Cleveland, Tennessee. Man alive, it's worth the drive. Thank you guys all for tuning in today. Dave will be back on Monday. We'll have the show again. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad you guys were able to do this with me. Again, it's tricky, but you guys on the chat room and on the message boards, y'all really help me out a lot when this happens. I want to thank Fred White for coming on the show. He helped out a lot too. You guys, this was a lot of fun. This was great. You all have a great weekend. Enjoy Cinco de Mayo. NFL draft's in the rear view. Spring practice is in the rear view. If you're a college football fan, all season is here. So we're just going to have some fun features happening over the next couple of months. But guys, we got some good ones. We got some fun ones. So please stick with us. We got a lot of great content. Please hit that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it. We want to try to bring more and more people in. We're doing something really, really exciting here. So last message I'm going to read from Mr. Jones. What would be cool is if they made teams like Ohio State schedule a few SEC game and cross-conference games. Okay, Mr. Jones, I have to bring this up to you. Yes, the SEC is the toughest conference, but it is. I don't mean every SEC team has an easy schedule. Look at Georgia's schedule this year. It is a complete and utter laughable schedule. I think Ohio State has a harder schedule than Georgia this year. I think the Big Ten East teams have a tougher schedule than Georgia and maybe a tougher schedule than Tennessee, because the SEC East is just, it's a questionable division, to say the least. The SEC is the toughest conference. The East is a questionable division. The SEC East is the Big Ten West of the conference, just not as bad as the Big Ten West. So don't worry. So I get what you're saying with Ohio State schedule some SEC games. How about make Georgia schedule some SEC West games or just some games against elite Big Ten teams? Be interesting to see how that goes. Thank you guys again for tuning in. You guys all have a great weekend. Again, I will be back on Monday with Dave. Have a good one, everybody.